Okay, any other questions? 2, 3 people just walked in. Welcome to the class. Huh? Any other questions of me? Because remember, in order to be grounded or to be here at the top of the triangle, you have to get all these things out of your system before you can concentrate. Once I remember I was teaching a group of doctors, and about 1 o'clock, one doctor comes to me and says, Rushi, you are absolutely right. I didn't hear a word that you said. Nothing registered, he said. I said, what happened? He said, you drank 3 pitchers of water by 1 o'clock, and I was wondering what will happen to your bladder. And that preoccupied him, you see. So little things always bother people. So if there is anything on your mind, now or later, please don't hesitate to interrupt me. There is no train of thought that I have going that will be interrupted. So you can interrupt me at any time and as many times as you wish, and ask me any questions anytime, whether they're relevant or irrelevant. Now the course, as it is designed and taught by me for the last 15, 20 years, it will answer 95% of your questions on self-hypnosis by 5:30 today, whether you ask those questions or not. Let me repeat. The course, as it is designed and taught by me for the last 15 years or so, will answer 95% of your questions on the subject of self-hypnosis by 5:30 today, whether you ask those questions or not. The 5% of the questions that it does not answer are either irrelevant or are of a very personal or private nature, and I could not possibly anticipate them. Fair enough? Nonetheless, I invite you to ask those questions. If they are too private, you can ask me during lunchtime or coffee break, and I'll attempt an answer. So as it is, the course will answer all the questions essentially on the subject of self-hypnosis. It does not answer questions on how to work with others or how to hypnotize others, because I do teach another course, which is a 2 days course, next weekend. Next one is on next weekend, 7th and 8th of June, which teaches you everything about hypnosis, which means how to work with others as well. But this course strictly deals with you, means self-hypnosis or auto-hypnosis. It will teach you all you need to know in order to practice by 5:30 today. The course is divided into several topics, and all of you have a manual in front of you, which says self-hypnosis. Are you looking at it? There are several topics or lectures. Now you will notice later on that some lectures are missing in your manual. Now that's not a mistake. See, my lectures on hypnosis are serialized, for both the courses, and some lectures that do not belong in this course, those pages have been taken out. Therefore, some topics will be missing. Yes, otherwise you'll wonder what happened to topic 9. Suddenly after 8 there is 12 that appears. What happened to 9, 10, 11? They don't belong here. All right? Therefore they are not here. You get it? They will be in the next course, which is a 2 days course, because they are part of that thing. So now the notes that you have in your manual, I've spent besides several years of research and reading for putting this together, I've spent about 400 hours putting these notes together in a conceptual form, so it will make some sense, to conceptualize it in this form and to put it together. So it will save you lots of spelling errors and a lot of note taking. And we will follow it lecture by lecture. Sometimes during the course you may ask me a question and I'll tell you to wait till topic so and so, because that question, an answer to that question will be much more meaningful within the proper context. So I'll tell you to please bear with me. I say you ask me a question in the middle of topic 1. Say, what about this? And I say, wait till topic 4, because that will be answered in topic 4. I want you to forget that question afterwards, because I'll remember it for you. Yeah? And at the right time, I'll come and say that this is the question you asked and here is the answer. Fair enough? So trust my memory for it. So at any time, if you feel like asking any questions, please feel free to ask. Now, any questions at this time, before we begin with the course proper?
One thing rather intrigues me, there seem to be a lot of conflicting opinions as to the safety of hypnotism in any form.
Right.
But it's intriguing that you say that within 2 days you can teach other people to hypnotize others.
As a matter of fact, I can teach 2 days is a lot of time actually. I was teaching a course in Chicago Once in the ad appear, and the man says, you mean to say you can teach how to hypnotize in 2 days? And I knew the way he asked me the question that if I say yes, there will be a long argument. Because the way people ask questions, you know what answers they don't want or what answers they do want. I said, no, I cannot teach it in 2 days. He said, I thought so. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a psychiatrist. I said, have you tried hypnotizing people? He said, for 4 years, it never works with me, he says. And I even tried self-hypnosis, it never works. I said, doctor, you didn't ask me how long will it take me to teach you. He said, yes, if you cannot teach it in 2 days, how long will it take? I said, half an hour. He said, what? At that time he forgot that half an hour is shorter than 2 days. He said, well, if you can teach it in half an hour, why do you have a 2 days course? I said, because doctor, for the past 4 or 5 years you've collected enough garbage in your head. So I want to remove it bit by bit, and then so in the last half an hour I'll put in some new garbage. So lady, to hypnotize somebody is the easiest thing I can teach you. It takes only half an hour to teach that. The rest is what to do before hypnosis, during hypnosis, and after hypnosis, which is the difficult part. To hypnotize somebody is the easiest thing. I tell you how easy it is. I can have a printed page in my 2 days course, 1 page, and you read it, that page, in front of 100 people whom you've never met, and you'll be able to hypnotize 20 or 30 out of that without doing anything, just by reading a page. It's the simplest thing. And the funniest part, that's for such a simple thing, there are so many myths and misconceptions. And that's the funniest part. Hypnosis is one of the most abused words in English language. My mother, who has a 3rd grade education in Gujarati, the one word in English she knows is hypnosis. The word is that known. And every connotation, generally bad connotation, that goes with the word, black magic, some mystery, some imagination or a stereotype image of a hypnotist is some guy with beard and piercing eyes, and magnetic some looks and stuff like that. All stupidities. And you read books, some of them available in India, that put a black spot on the wall and concentrate, and you will learn hypnosis. As a result, you ruin your eyesight. And don't learn anything about hypnosis. Because you don't need a spot or eyes or anything. You can put your voice on the tape and it will do the job. It is that simple. As a matter of fact, most of you have already hypnotized yourself without your awareness. So what you will know in this class throughout the day as something that you already knew but did not know you knew. Does it make sense? Let me illustrate. Just a second. We'll just have 1 minute. See, every morning you wake up in the morning, just because your eyes are open, are you fully awake? Are you? The caffeine has not gone into your system. For all practical purposes, you are in a hypnotic state. And you stagger to the bathroom and you look into the mirror and you start brushing your teeth and you say, oh, I feel so tired. And your subconscious mind says yes, because the full-time job of your subconscious mind is to say yes. You say, oh, it's a Monday, I got to go to work, I hate the job. Subconscious mind says yes. So before you came out of that bathroom in the morning, you have already programmed your mind for a lousy day in a state of self-hypnosis. And there are enough people in this world who, in the name of concern for you, will give you negative suggestions. And you go to work and you're already feeling that way because you program yourself, and somebody will meet, you look very tired today. Didn't you sleep well? And that reinforces what you've already told yourself. So we give ourselves suggestions day in and day out anyway. You see? That's what we do. What I'm pointing out to you today throughout the day is basically something you know, but you are not controlling that state. Now I want to teach you a technique through which you can control that state. Does it make sense? And use it for good purposes instead of these sort of negative things that I feel tired and lousy and so forth. Your question?
Are we using the term self-hypnosis in the same sense as auto-suggestion?
That is correct. Plus something more. Plus something more. All right. So basically what I'm talking about, let me explain that by another little story. There was one guy, a sculptor. So a friend of his, who had never seen him sculpt, He one day goes up to him and he says, I want to see how you do this sculpting. I want to be familiar with this art. So he goes there and he's watching the sculptor. So sculptor says, listen, he says, I'm not doing any sculpting. The sculpture is already there within the stone. All I'm doing is taking away the unnecessary part of the stone so the sculpture will surface. You understand that? You understand? So all of you know how to do self-hypnosis, but there is a lot of unnecessary garbage around it, or chips of stones that are around it. I'll take it out bit by bit throughout the day. So you will know what it is. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. Okay, with that, let's begin with lecture 1. Please open your manuals. Please open your manuals. Are you looking at it? It says Lecture 1, History and Present Status of Hypnosis. Are you all there? On the top of the page, there is a thought by Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine. He said, it has oft appeared, while I've been soothing my patients, as if there was some strange property in my hands to pull and draw away from the afflicted parts, aches and divers impurities, by laying my hand upon the place and by extending my fingers toward it. It is thus known to the learned that health may be impressed upon the sick by certain movements and by contact, just as some diseases may be communicated from one to another. Hippocrates never used the word hypnosis at that time. But what he was speaking of was touch suggestion, or a tactile suggestion, by laying my hand upon the place and by extending my fingers toward it. He was speaking of suggestion. See, generally when we think of a suggestion, we think of verbal. But suggestion could be through any one of the senses. Through any one of the senses, we give suggestions. Sometimes non-verbal suggestion or touch suggestions are much more effective than the lots of words. To give you an example, say somebody died in somebody's family. Do you go there and tell him, oh, Lord Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita, Jatasya dhrivo mrityu dhrivam janma mritasya cha, ones who are born are supposed to die, and he will kick you out. Best you can do is hold his hand or touch him and look at him and make an eye contact and convey to him non-verbally that you share his grief and sorrow. Is that correct? Words will not do that job at that time. They fall flat. They fall flat. The words do. Any good communicator or any good person or an artist who gives suggestions, he understands this principle that suggestion could be appealing to any one of the senses. And more on that later on. Some historical backdrop. The early history of hypnosis starts with the primitive society. See, the word hypnosis came into English language only in 1841-42. But phenomena such as hypnosis have been with us since time immemorial. In primitive societies, when somebody was sick, he was brought to the witch doctor or the shaman. There was a fire burning in the middle of the ground. People started dancing around it, chanting, beating the drums. And the person who was suffering from a disease went into a trance-like state, and when he came out of it, he was healed. If you look at the word disease and split it into two, then the word dis-ease. That's what it is. So he started feeling easy again, as it were. The dis part was gone. It's like comfort, discomfort. In our culture, Hindu culture, we have references to Sammohini Vidya, Vashikaran Vidya. In the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, there are references to words like Sammohana Astra. A weapon, when used, will put the opposing army into sleep-like state and will render it incapable of fighting. In Gujarati there is a word najarabandi, then there is tratak, all these words. In yogic practices there is shavasana practice, also a relaxation technique through autosuggestions. In Greek and Egyptian civilization in Asia Minor, we have archaeological findings showing a priest putting a person into a trance state or a sleep-like state in order to heal him. And such places were known as the sleep temples. However, with the advent of Christianity, such practices fell into disrepute, because one of the fundamental beliefs in Christianity is the notion or the concept of free will. That man has the ability to choose between good and evil. That they believed, Christians did erroneously earlier, that when the person is in a trance-like state, he loses his ability to choose, and therefore it was devil's work. However, in 1957, Pope Pius XII from the Vatican City, by a special announcement, accepted hypnosis theologically for medical and psychological purposes. He gave it a theological stamp of approval. So any Christians here, you have Pope's blessings. Otherwise, this is important, because I tell you, when I was in Montreal, which is about 67% Catholic population in Montreal, Canada, French Catholic. And there was a nun who was to be operated on, and the chemical anesthesia was for some reason contraindicated. So they thought of hypnosis as an anesthetic. When she found out that she was to be hypnotized for the purpose of operation, she said, "Oh, no, that's against my religion." So the doctor called me up and said, "Rushi, what do we do in a case like this?" Because I was teaching religion at that time, in a comparative religion courses in a college. So, and they also knew I taught hypnosis. So I said, "Listen, doctor, give her this text by the Pope, as reported in the hospital journal, and tell her to read it." She looks at it, "Oh, Holy Father said so, it's all right." Instantly she was motivated and prepared for the operation, because this was the only barrier that was in between her, and the state of hypnosis. So little things, those become the crucial things, because these are the defenses. This is what creates resistance. Small things like that. Now, the modern history of hypnosis starts with a very charismatic individual by the name of Dr. Franz Anton Mesmer. This is what he looked like. You may have heard Dr. Mesmer's name before. Mesmerize, mesmerism. He gave the two words into English language. Ustad Ali Akbar Khan Sahib gave a recital on Sarod, and the audience sat mesmerized. The music reviewers will write. So this is Mesmer. He was a student of medicine. He also studied theology. He was born in about 1733, died in 1815. He was very much influenced by the work of Father Gesner in Cloisters, who used a crucifix to cure people of their hysteric states, which he called sort of devil's possession. Father Gesner said, and used crucifix. Mesmer started using magnet instead in order to heal people. Because at that time there was a theory called animal magnetism, which held there was some sort of a universal invisible fluid which joined and connected the objects. And that by using magnet you could keep the balance of this fluid. So Mesmer started utilizing magnet in his practice. His practices were questioned by the Medical Association in Vienna, and Mesmer had to leave Vienna in 1770s. He left Vienna because the Medical Association declared his theories to be invalid. He left Vienna, he came to France. There again he set up his practice. He had a device by this time called Becket, which was a vessel-like thing, and out of that a rod was jutting out, and there were woolen strings coming out of it. There was magnetized water, iron chips within the Becket, and the patients were told to hold these woolen strings as Mesmer, in his lilac robe, exuding confidence, walked around them, touching them with a magnetic rod and he had told them that when he touched them with the magnetic rod, they will go into trance state, which he called grand crisis. The grand crisis, which was nothing more than convulsive state. Again, Mesmer's practices in France were investigated by committees, and one of the members on the committee was Dr. Benjamin Franklin. Another was Mr. Glutton, the man who is known for creating a device of killing people, chopping their head. Huh? That's right, that man. It's named after him, Guillotine, a French gentleman. So these people investigated Mesmer. Mesmer was never called to defend himself, as it were, and he had to leave France. He wandered around Europe lecturing on his theory of animal magnetism. Died in 1815, saying that he had pioneered something which will continue throughout centuries. His prophecy has proved to be true, because even today there is research being done in magnetism in Japan, America. As a matter of fact, I'll be interviewing a magnetic therapist on Doordarshan just this next Monday, which will be broadcast on, I believe, June 30th, Aapka Swasthya program. 7:30 to 8 on Bombay channel.
So is that magnetic therapy has something to do with the hypnotism or something?
No, this is basically this is a continuation. Hypnosis became separate later, which you'll find out presently. But initially magnet was used by Mesmer to cure people. But later on, as we're coming now, during this time, there was Marquis de Puysegur. I'll tell you the differences between the two in a few minutes. During this time, there was Marquis de Puysegur, who started utilizing Mesmer's technique. Now, animal magnetism came to be known as mesmerism. They are basically synonymous. And Marquis de Puysegur said that this grand crisis or this convulsive state was not essential for getting healed. What was essential was an artificial somnambulism. Now, all of you basically know what somnambulism means, dictionary meaning at least. What does it mean? Walking in sleep, right. When I use the term for the purposes of hypnosis, the term has a slightly detailed and little different meaning. So start writing. Somnambulism means